Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Zero Dark 30, starring Jessica Chastain, Joel Egerton, Chris Pratt, Mark Strong, Jason Clarke, Rita Kateb, Kyle Chandler, Jennifer Eel, Harold Perrineau, Jeremy Strong, and J.J. Candle, directed by Catherine Bigelow. Now, I have seen this movie before, but it's been a while, and will it be as kind? Will it be a kind viewing? Well, let's see what happens. Let's get into the movie. It's 2003, 2 years after 9/11, when a young CIA officer named Maya, played by Jessica Chastain, has spent their entire brief career since graduating from high school focused solely on gathering intelligence related to Osama bin Laden, who's the leader of Al Qaeda, following the terrorists behind the 9/11 attacks in the United States of America. And she was just reassigned to the U.S. Embassy in Pakistan to work with a fellow officer named Dan, played by Jason Clarke, as he tortures a man named Ammar al-Baluchi, played by Rita Kateb, about when the last time he saw bin Laden was, as Ammar doesn't want to talk to Dan, and Dan continuously tortures Ammar while Maya watches. And the cinematography was pretty shaky throughout, as this is not a Paul Greengrass film. This is a Catherine Bigelow film, and Lord knows I haven't seen too many, but I have seen Point Break and have reviewed The Hurt Locker before, and it was shaky in The Hurt Locker, but that was a better movie than this. But here, 2.5 hours of that can be pretty irritating at times, but don't get me wrong, I've seen this before, and it was a good movie from what I remember, but quit shaking the fucking camera. Dan talks with Joseph Bradley, played by Kyle Chandler, as Maya meets him for the first time. She comes into the American Embassy in Pakistan and has a meeting with Dan, Joe, as well as Jessica, played by Jennifer Eel, Jack, played by Harold Perrineau from the Matrix sequels, Thomas, played by Jeremy Strong, whom I reviewed in M. Night Shyamalan's The Happening, Steven Spielberg's Lincoln, Scott Cooper's Black Mass, and The Trial of the Chicago 7, and JJ, played by J.J. Candle from The Hurt Locker. What a surprise. And we go back to Dan torturing Ammar while Maya is there, and he talks to her about information regarding bin Laden. And this movie is very intense, but it tells a great biography of the American people. Dan asks Ammar when the next attack comes in, and they put him in a box as he confesses where and when the next attack comes in. And we move on to Saudi Arabia in 2004 as people are getting attacked. And the sound was great to hear throughout as Maya and Dan talk with Ammar about how he saved innocent lives and giving him a proper meal and talking about what he did after the invasion that was 9/11, as he wanted to kill Americans with bin Laden, and he confesses who the other terrorists are and brings up his uncle worked for bin Laden all those years. And we move on to Abu Ahmed, and as they capture him, and Maya watches videos of his interrogation. And this is a long movie at 2.5 hours, as some of the first 30 minutes could be in the editing room floor, as the torture scenes did take a bit too long. Maya goes to Poland and meets John, played by Scott Adkins, whom I've seen in, well, maybe, I think it was a translator, but anyways, as she interrogates one of the terrorists and takes one of what he said back to Pakistan. And Maya not getting answers to where bin Laden's at, as she reports it to Joe and meets with her team. And we move on to London in 2005, where a terrorist attack took place on a bus, as Joe sees it on the TV while a monkey steals Dan's ice cream cone. And we move on to Maya interrogating one of the terrorists, as this guy didn't have any intention of getting tortured again, and says she'll never find bin Laden. And this could have been cut out, while another scene where a man is wired up to blow up a beautiful location with children around as he walked funny in a strange way and gets arrested. And do I get what the fuck is going on here? Not at all. Dan takes the prisoner to a jail cell, and Dan says how he's not going to help him as he doesn't like him. And when I think of Jason Clarke, I think that line from this movie. Not Planet of the Apes, not the character he played in Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, and certainly not Terminator either. And Maya interrogates the terrorist as well as tortures him with a disguise, while Dan wants to go back to America to work for the CIA. And we get to the Marriott Hotel meeting in Pakistan in 2008 with Maya and Jessica meeting at the restaurant and at the Marriott until a bomb goes off and Maya and Jessica get out of the restaurant. With an exception of Maya, the characters come and go, and do I care for any of them? Honestly, they're adequate, but at best Maya is the only character to relate with. Right? Because honestly, I do like her confidence, but the character feels one note. We move on to the meeting in northern Pakistan as the attack is on the TV and they see on the interview by Barack Obama, and Maya doesn't go to Afghanistan as Jessica goes there, bakes a cake, bringing some wine and drinks for some of, while a co-worker, John, while Lady Antebellum plays in the background. And we move on to Jessica running the interrogation and goes through the plans with other co-workers and wait for the person they intend to meet, while Jessica messages Maya before seeing she gets blown up to death. And the first half of this kind of bored me, as I can't tell you what the fuck's going on at this point, but the second half is what kicks into gear in my opinion. Maya learns Jessica is unfortunately dead and is very sad about it, as she sleeps in her office and is awakened and approached by a co-worker to get a video of the death of her suspect as well as death of Jessica. And later on that night, Jack comes up to Maya and she wants to smoke up Afghanistan and kill Bin Laden. And we get to human error as Maya, Joe, and Jack have a meeting with George, played by Mark Strong, who is very upset at doing a bad job, and they're no closer to killing Bin Laden, as Maya is approached by a female co-worker who learns so much about Maya by not eating out, which is too dangerous. And Maya gets the idea of calling Dan for the CIA, saying something about something she wants to be real, and gets Syed's phone number to crack open a case. And I'm not feeling much coming from this 10 minutes, as it slows the movie way the hell down, but the acting is convincing, but not as good as The Hurt Locker in my opinion. Dan buys a Lamborghini for a friend of his to trade for Syed's mother's phone number, and Kraft, comes in, and we hear things on the phone lines like, and Maya gets information about Syed, and one of the soldiers refuses Maya's orders to go after the terrorists as they have lunch together, and talks about why to get Syed to begin with, and convinces the soldiers to go after the motherfucker. And they are no characters to connect with until we get to the final mission at the end of the movie, but I haven't gotten there yet. As Maya talks with Joe about getting close to Bin Laden, as he doesn't give a shit about Bin Laden, he cares about the next attack, and the writing in this is good, but it's not the world's greatest script ever, but it is a very good script. Not great, but very good. Ivan is surrounded by terrorists as a translator talks with them in Pakistan. And eventually they get out of as one of the guys gets out of the car, and which is an unnecessary scene. And Maya and Jack talk about what's going to happen to Maya. Learns there are protesters outside the U.S. Embassy. She fucked up big time. And she goes back to America while Joe happens to face a lawsuit thanks to Maya's actions in Pakistan, as an agent looks for a suspect and takes photographs of him. And at this point, I'm just bored out of my freaking mind. I mean, it's a good movie, but at this point, nothing is really happening. Maya goes to work in Pakistan and suddenly gets attacked by a couple of terrorists to scare her away. And we get to the Predator Bay in the CIA headquarters back in America, where George is in charge. And Maya goes to a meeting with the CIA director, who's played by James Gandolfini, and George happens to be there amongst others, as Maya finds the house whom she's led to believe is where Bin Laden is at, as she says, "I'm the motherfucker that found this house." Well, which is a badass line, and she marks on George's office window for many days and says nothing has happened. And this is when the movie kicks into gear at this point. George visits the White House to make a search warrant at the safe house. And come on, they're not cops, but maybe under military law, something like that. But the White House unfortunately says no, while Maya continuously writes on George's office window. And we do eventually go to Area 51, which is in southern Nevada, And we meet in a bunch of soldiers led by squadron leader, team leader Patrick, played by Joel Egerton, Justin, played by Chris Pratt, before he was overcast and everything, Jared, Saber, Henry, Phil, Nate, and Mike, who's played by Luke Cage himself, Mike Coulter. As others and Maya believe Bin Laden is at the house, and she didn't want to use the soldiers, and these were not relatable soldiers, as in Saving Private Ryan, but relatable. The CIA director, asks everybody, including Maya, if they're sure if Bin Laden's at the house, while people are, say, 60%. But Maya says 100 or 95 because it scares them, and people believe she's fucking smart. As the CIA director joins Maya at lunch, and he asks what she's done for the CIA other than the Bin Laden case, and she says nothing, and we get to operating base in 2011, as Patrick and Justin play a game while asking if they believe Osama Bin Laden's in there, as Patrick does because of Maya's confidence, and George calls her saying the mission is happening tonight. And this is the point I wanted to get to this entire almost 2 hours, and I have 30 minutes of movie left. And we move on to nighttime as the soldiers are going to the house by helicopter, and they get there, and this is starting to make me on the edge of my seat, as it's that fucking intense, and I'll explain why in the next segment. Like I just said, they get outside of the house where Bin Laden is hiding at, and how in the hell can the helicopter make all this noise and not wake people up is beyond me, as the helicopter does crash and it wakes people up, and the soldiers get out of the helicopters and look for a Bin Laden by first things first, blowing up the door while snipers protecting the fellow soldiers, as the people protecting the terrorists shoot at the soldiers, and a woman comes out of there saying, "You killed him." Yeah, no shit, because he shot them first, and they continue looking for Bin Laden as he's hiding somewhere in the house, with soldiers blowing up a door after door, and these scenes are scary right out the bat. The audience sees bodies running and terrorists shooting at the soldiers, are pointing their guns and scaring their kids, while the soldiers have green vision, and as people are waking up and coming up to the soldiers, like, what the fuck is going on? And almost attacking the soldiers, while they tell the civilians to back up, and they refuse to do so, while the translators say the soldiers will kill them, and the soldiers continue to look for Bin Laden, and when they find him, they shoot at him behind the door and kill his ass off. And the soldier gets a photograph of Osama Bin Laden's dead body, the same exact way we saw it on the TV, which looks disturbing enough as it is. And the soldiers clear out the terrorist plans, and by searching their plans, which felt fucking intense, one of the soldiers, leader that's played by Frank Grillo, says to Justin they have 4 minutes to get the hell out of there, while they need 10, but he refuses, and they get out in 4 minutes, as well as carry Osama Bin Laden's dead body out of the crime scene. And I know they're not cops, but that's what I'm calling it in the meantime. And they bring his body back to Area 51 by helicopter, and Maya sees the dead body of Bin Laden, and as she takes a flight back home in a military transport, and the pilot asks her where does she want to go, and she doesn't say anything, and the door closes as the movie ends, and the climax makes this a good movie, but not a great movie. But what will I give it in a rating? Let's find out. I'll give this movie a 6.4 out of 10. Definitely not quite as good as The Hurt Locker, as the cinematography shook a little too much. And I thought, Catherine Bigelow, stop shaking the fucking camera, as the movie is very fucking intense, but it tells a great biography for the American people, and the sound was great to hear throughout, but this is a long movie at 2.5 hours, as some of the first 30 minutes could have been cut out of as the torture scenes did take too long. There were times I didn't get what the hell was going on, and the exception of Maya, who comes off confident as rather one note, the characters come off and go as they're adequate at best, and the first half is making me kind of bored, as like I said, I can't tell what the fuck happened, but the second half kicks into gear as it slows way the hell down, and the acting was rather convincing, but not as good as The Hurt Locker. It is a good movie, not a great movie. I was bored out of my freaking mind for the first hour and 40 minutes, of the movie, and it is a recommendation for the movie, but the problem I'm having is it took too damn long to get to the point of the movie as it goes off subject, which annoyed me for about an hour and 45 minutes into the movie when Maya says, "I'm the motherfucker that found the house," which was a badass line, but at the end of the day, the movie was good, but not great in my opinion. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for this review, and until then, I'm the motherfucker that found that house.